Hey there everybody, this is Lee with Creative Two-Time Mom, and today I want to talk about authenticity, particularly authenticity in your homeschool. So this video is actually part of an open collaboration that's being hosted by Pepper and Pine. She put out that question to all of us homeschooling YouTubers out there. How do you stay authentic in your homeschool? What does authenticity in your homeschool look like? How do you stay true to yourself as you're following along in this journey? And I think that's a great question. It can be really hard because there's so many opportunities out there for us as homeschoolers, and I don't know about the rest of you, but it's really hard not to compare my kids to other people's kids, and it's especially difficult not to compare myself to other homeschoolers. And I think part of that is just the pressure. There's a lot of pressure when you're carrying your kids' education, because I can't sit back and go, it's that teacher's fault that he is getting an F and she needs to be teaching more to his capabilities and she needs to be getting him tutoring, because you know what? I'm talking to myself here. There's a lot of pressure when you're carrying your kids' education, and it causes you a lot of times, I believe, to compare yourself to other homeschoolers. So staying authentic in your homeschool can be really challenging. I think that we live in a society where it's very hard to be authentic anyway, and then when you're dealing with the education system and how your kids are learning, there's a lot of pressure. So let's just talk about authenticity. First of all, what challenges us to stay authentic? And a lot of times I can feel when we're derailing from who we are. The days get more challenging, the attitudes get bigger, the frustrations get larger. There's just this feeling in our homeschool of being very heavy when we are not working toward working the way that we are in an authentic way in our homeschool. Some of the things that tend to derail me personally is I will see a lot of homeschoolers out there, and I compare, I'll see one mom who is teaching Latin, and I go, oh, that's so great for the prefixes and the suffixes and vocabulary and understanding what words mean. I should be teaching that. Or I will see another parent who is working really heavy on classical education, and I'm seeing the way they memorize and the way that they are, just the way their kids are absorbing so much. And I think, oh, I need to head down that classical road. That's where we need to be. And then other times I'll compare and I'll see, oh man, that woman's kids, they can play the piano, they can play the violin, they're picking up the guitar. We need to become a musical family. And there's that challenge because we do have a lot of time and a lot of opportunities out there, and we get to set the schedule and we get to pick the priorities. So a lot of times you'll see all these options, and it's very easy to compare and think, well, what I'm doing is just not enough. I need to be running down that road, or I need to be running down this road. And it can be a challenge. I think the thing is too, is that you can't just settle in and say, we are exactly where we need to be. The way we are learning is completely authentically us. I don't think that there is any room to ever get to that place, because homeschooling is just like parenting. As soon as you settle into a place where you're like, this is the way we learn, this is our philosophy, this is the way we're going to do it forever, your kids change. They hit a roadblock. We hit a roadblock in September with variables. Variables was a super hard subject for me to explain. It was a hard subject for my son to grasp. I had to switch gears in our math and really say, okay, you are at a different place. What was working for us before is not working for us now. And if I continue to go down that road with you, it's just going to spell disaster, because that's not the stage of life that you're in. I think authenticity as a homeschooler can very much so change from child to child, from season to season, from grade to grade. What was working last year is not necessarily going to work this year. And I think honestly, the greatest characteristic you can have as a homeschooler is to just be flexible. and just to say, if we're going to be true to teaching to your capabilities, I've got to be flexible to change my direction, to change my philosophy, to change the way I teach. So authentic homeschooling, I think, has a lot to do with knowing yourself, knowing your kids, knowing your season of life. Like I said, what worked one season is not necessarily going to work another season. What works for one homeschool mom is not necessarily going to work for another homeschool mom. And I think that's really what has led us to becoming eclectic homeschoolers. That's really why my curriculum's all over the board, because my son works very well at just a rigid, tough, textbook-based math. That works really well for him. But when it comes to science, all of my kids want to be very hands-on. They're very visual, hands-on learners with science. And so I have to adjust and do what works for that subject. And that's what really keeps us flexible. It keeps us honest, keeps us kind of all over the board, is just staying true to who we are, staying authentic. There are some days that, and I am like a social media, I love it. I think part of it is being just at home all the time. I love communicating with people on Facebook and YouTube and talking with you guys. But there are some days that I just have to say, okay, 24 hours, no media. I'm off Facebook, I'm off Twitter, I'm off YouTube, because I start to compare myself to other homeschoolers, and that's not going to help my kids. It's not going to help me. It's not going to help our homeschool as a whole when we start comparing to other people. So there are days that I just have to say, I don't have the strength to not compare myself, so I'm shutting out the rest of the world to help me. And I think part of that as well can just be having other homeschoolers in real life who can come alongside you and say, hey, how is this particular area of your homeschool going? I know you were having a challenge with this. Having those people in your real life that you give permission to ask you questions and to keep you accountable keeps you so honest to who you are as a mom and as a homeschooler. Because I've had friends that have said, hey, you tried this, but I see your kids work really well with this. How's that working out for you? And then it causes me to stop and go, you know what? I don't know why I even tried that. I saw somebody else did it. It worked great for them, but it doesn't fit us. And it realigns me back to that priority of, what is my goal? My goal is my kids' education, and they're not going to necessarily learn as much walking down that path because it's not true to them. So I think that's really important. I think it's important to have homeschooling friends in real life. I think it's important to have homeschooling mentors in real life, so that they can show you, hey, this worked for me, but it's not necessarily going to work for you. They're a great guide into the future, especially as your kids are getting older. I have a junior hire this year, and I can sense the change in the air. I can sense him maturing, and I can sense our relationship, both as mother and son and as teacher and student, shifting. I'm taking more of a seat of, let's investigate this together, rather than, here is what we're learning, here is what it looks like, here is the process. I've always wanted to be that teacher that kind of steps back and guides, but for a while you do have certain things that I'm talking about authenticity, and I'm telling you how to do this. For us, we have had certain things that I've had to kind of structure a little bit more, but I feel things changing. I feel the season shifting. I feel his capabilities changing, and just the way he processes is completely different than it was even a year ago. So I think authenticity in homeschooling takes on a couple different things, and it takes real life people challenging you, and it takes putting your blinders on and knowing yourself and knowing your kids and focusing on what makes your homeschool special. Because you can drive yourself crazy trying to do everything under the sun. It's the same thing with sending your kids to public school. I wouldn't send my kids to public school and expect the teacher to do everything that I expect of myself. So I've had to give myself a little bit of grace and know that what is our focus. And for me, so much of our focus in homeschool can be narrowed down to two things: learning to read and learning great math. I figure if I can give my kids those two things, I have set them up for huge success. Now, of course, there's other things that I want to bring along. I want them to learn with their hands. I want them to be able to see the world. I want them to explore national parks. Nature is a huge part of our homeschooling. I want them to have appreciation for the people who've gone before them in history. All those things I feel like are a gift that I can give my kids. But at the end of the day, if I have taught them to read for information, and if I have taught them to study their math, I am a happy homeschooler. And that's staying true to us. That's our authenticity. That's the place where we're at. That's the calling that I feel that I have as a homeschooler. My gift to my students is those two things in particular. So leave me a comment down below. What does authentic homeschooling look like for you? Have you ever thought about it? What is authentic in your homeschool, and what does authenticity look like in your relationship with your students? I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.